everyone, welcome. This is a hip and pelvis focused practice. So we're going to really be getting into all the muscles surrounding our hips from all different angles, doing the work to lengthen and release those muscles, as well as a little bit of work to strengthen and stabilize some of those muscles that get a bit overlooked sometimes. So let's begin. We're going to start in a child's pose. I happen to have a few blocks with me. If you have yoga blocks, you may want to have them handy. If not, don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll make it through without the yoga blocks. So we're going to start in child's pose, but I'd like you to start with your knees nice and wide. So maybe almost as wide as your yoga mat, or a little bit wider than your shoulders. And then crawl yourself down, ease yourself down. You can rest your forehead on the mat and make a little pillow out of your hands. So right off the bat here, we're starting to open slightly into our inner thighs, inner groin sort of area with our knees nice and wide. We're going to take some nice deep breaths. Deep, slow inhales. Deep, slow exhales. And start to let your body sink into the ground. So you're letting the weight of your body drop, letting your muscles relax. And if it feels okay here, I encourage you to take a little kind of rock a little bit from side to side. So you can just kind of rock your upper body and rock your hips slightly from side to side, kind of cradling your way or rocking your way into those hip sockets a little deeper and a little softer. Now relax your jaw, relax your face, relax your shoulders as best as you can, and drop your breath right down into the bottom of your belly. So you're actually sending, maybe visualizing your breath, drawing not only into your lungs, but all the way down into your pelvis, down into the bowl of your pelvis. Now you're welcome to take a big sigh if that feels good, a nice releasing sigh out through your mouth on an exhale breath. Sometimes it just helps to drop a few more layers, taking that nice exaggerated exhale. Let's come on up, so lift yourself up softly, and we're revisiting child's pose one more time, but I want you to bring your knees all the way into touch, so your inner thighs are actually touching, hugging in, and it's just going to get into our hip sockets in a different angle here. So again, walking forwards, literally letting your belly soften and release down on top of your thighs. Keep your inner knees and your inner thighs touching, hugged together. Again, maybe forehead rests on the ground or a nice pillow out of your hands. You could even use a block underneath your forehead if you have one around. And then just check in this version of child's pose for a couple more breaths. Again, that sense of really dropping your weight, softening into the ground, softening into your hips, your pelvis, your hip sockets, those hip joints. Sending your breath, visualizing your breath, dropping right down to the very pit, the very bottom of your belly, right down into your pelvis. Now for our last breath here, maybe you want to take another little rock from side to side. So you're kind of shifting your hips slightly out from one side and then over to the other side. Take your time, you don't have to rush your way through any of this. Good. And then let's let that go. So come on up, release up to your hands and your knees. Hands underneath your shoulders. Knees underneath your hips. Now we're going to send the right leg straight back behind us and then bend the right knee. So you really want to have a nice 90-degree angle there, and your right thigh is really parallel. So drop your knee to point directly down towards the ground. So as we go through this, I want you to try to keep your center, your core really stable, and your pelvis actually fairly neutral. So we're just working that thigh bone in the hip socket. I'm going to turn a little bit so that maybe you can see a little bit better here. So with that right knee bent, you're going to inhale, and then exhale, drop your right knee down towards your left. Try to internally rotate your thigh as much as you can, and then start to circle that right knee out towards the side. So you're pressing up through the outer right knee, outer right thigh, out to the side as much as you can, without your hips swinging way open. So you're just trying to keep your hips nice and neutral. And then pull that right knee back behind you, so you're kind of stacking the right hip slightly open on top of the left. Okay, inhale, breath. And then exhale, internally rotate back to parallel and drop right knee down to the left. Start to swing that right knee out to the side, pressing your outer right knee up towards the ceiling, and then gather it straight back behind you. Right knee and right hip stacked slightly open on top of left. Again, inhale, breath. Exhale, internally rotate. Drop that right knee down, and it's subtle, so go slow. You don't have to rush through this. Press the right knee out towards the side. You're probably going to feel those outer right glute muscles, your glute med muscles, really having to work here. That's part of why we're doing this. Stack right hip open on top of left. We're going to do one more time, lots of breath. Exhale, internally rotate. Try to feel that thigh bone rotating in the hip socket. Articulating in the hip socket, and again, press the right knee out towards the side, and then stack that right hip open on top of left. All right, now inhale, breath. This time, exhale, just draw right knee to your forehead, and then step right foot between your hands. Crescent lunge, so let your hips sink forwards. You're going to sweep the arms wide and high, and just soften down through shoulders. Really let your pelvis sink towards the front of your mat. So you're opening up through the front of your left hip, hip flexors, psoas. Nice deep breath again. And a nice soft breath out. Good. Release your hands down to the ground. Three-legged dog. Right leg sweeps up and back behind you. Now again, bend the right knee. Let's stack the right knee, the right hip open slightly on top of the left, but keep your shoulders nice and square here. So chest and shoulders are square, and you're just trying to stack that right hip open. Now press your right knee and your right shin up towards the ceiling even a little bit more. Inhale, breath. Exhale, step the right foot to the outside of your right hand. So you're stepping that right foot a little bit wide. Come onto your fingertips. With your inhale, we're going to sink down through the hips. Keep that back leg powered up and nice and straight. Take a little gather back of your shoulders, and you can peek your sternum forwards. Okay, big inhale, breath. And then exhale, you're lengthening your front leg as you pull your hips back, especially that right hip is pulling back. And we'll do that 2 more times. Rocking forwards, breathe in, sink the hips. Little peek of your chest, your sternum forwards. Big exhale. Exaggerate that exhale, nice and dramatic if you want to, if it feels good, if it helps you. Last time. Breathe in. Sinking hips. And breathe out. Lengthening, bowing inwards. Good. Now let's rebend that right knee. We'll step the left foot forwards, nice and wide, outside of your left hand. Turn the toes out slightly, the heels in, and we'll come to yogi squat. Now gather both shoulder blades back and down. Try to elongate your spine up through your neck, up through the back of your skull. Big breath. Soft belly, soft pelvis. Exhale. Release to forward fold. So parallel your feet and extend your knees. Inhale, fingertips either to the ground or to your shins. Half lift, long spine. And exhale, stretch and reach down over your legs. Forward fold. And sweep up to stand. Breathing in a nice deep breath. Get as tall as you can. And then forward fold again. Bowing right back down over the legs. Halfway lift. Breathing in, peeking forward. Step your right foot all the way back. And then take your right hand slightly forwards of your right shoulder. We're going to spin those left toes a quarter turn towards the left side of the mat and come onto the outer edge of your back foot, of your right foot. Send left arm up towards the ceiling, and this is like a supported side plank shape here, but we're gonna move back and forth here. So I want you to press with that left foot into the ground and try to send your hips up towards the ceiling. Take an inhale breath there. And then exhale, lower the outer right hip down towards the ground. You can take that top hand and kind of reach it towards your back foot. So getting into the outer line of your hip and thigh of the bottom leg. Let's do that again. So pressing left foot into the ground. Send your hips up, 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 up to the ceiling. Breathe in. And then exhale, lower down. Keep that back leg, your underneath leg, really straight and strong. Now hips send up to the ceiling again. Breathe in, hips as high as you can. Exhale, let's swizzle back through center. Place your hands under shoulders and step back to downward facing dog. Take an inhale breath and an exhale breath. Pull forwards to plank pose, shoulders stack over wrists. You're more than welcome to take supported plank at any point if you choose. And then with your exhale, we're going to lower all the way to our belly and really hug and wrap your elbows in towards the sides of your rib cage. Once you're on your belly, inhale for a cobra. Gather your shoulders back, find that nice little back bend. And then breathe out, child's pose. Slink your hips all the way back towards your heels. Good, come on back up, hands and knees. Now we're going to take that nice rotation of the thigh bone in the hip socket again on the other side. So send your left leg straight back, bend your knee, again 90 degrees, nice and parallel. Keep your core fairly secure and neutral, and your pelvis as neutral as you can. As you breathe out, drop the left knee down, try to find that internal rotation. And then start to press your left knee out towards the side and up towards the ceiling. And then gather your left knee all the way back behind you. So your left hip is stacking slightly open on top of the right. And then breathe in, exhale as you internally rotate, like you're trying to draw big circles with that left knee in the air. Pressing left knee out to the side and up to the ceiling. And then slowly, slowly take it all the way back. So really take your time here. Painfully slow. Internally rotate. Take it down. Articulating through the rotation and the range of motion in that hip socket. Also starting to wake up all those little muscles that support and stabilize the pelvis. We're going to do that one more time. With your exhale, internal rotation, drop it down. And then slowly press out to the side, up as high as you can, and then gather it all the way back. Good. Pause here for your inhale breath, and then left knee pulls into forehead with your exhale. Left foot steps between your hands, crescent lunge, let those hips sink forwards, 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 and then slowly gather yourself up with your upper body. Release your arms wide and high and check in at the shoulders. Drop away from the ears. Nice deep breath. In and out through the nose as you let your hips sink down and forwards, opening through the front of that right hip. Last round of breath where you are. And then you can release your hands down to the ground. Three-legged dog, left leg back behind you. Bend left knee again and stack the left hip open on top of the right. Shoulders stay square. Really firmly press left knee and left shin up towards the ceiling. Stay there. Breathe it in. And then exhale, left foot steps wide to the outside of your left hand and come on up to your fingertips. So breathing in, you're letting your hips sink forwards and down. Again, that back leg stays really straight. Keep that back leg powered up. Peek your sternum bone, your chest forwards. And exhale as you pull your hips back, especially your left hip. Try to pull that left hip towards the wall behind you. We've got 2 more rounds of that. Breathe in, sinking down. Breathing out, pulling back. Last one. Inhale, nice and soft and watery here. So nice and fluid as you breathe and move down into the hips and the pelvis. Exhale, gather and pull back. Now bending your left knee, take a look forward. Step your right foot wide as well. Yogi squat, toes out, heels in slightly. And soften down. Now again, we're hugging the shoulder blades back and then sliding the shoulder blades down and lengthening from your tailbone all the way up to the crown of your head. Pause there for a full breath. And a nice big sigh out if you'd like. Forward folds. Let that go. Parallel your feet and extend your knees. Halfway lift on your inhale breath. And then dive down deep into your forward fold. Try to reach the crown of your head towards the ground. Inhale to sweep up to stand. And then right back down to forward fold with your exhale. Halfway lift. Inhale, now step left foot all the way back. Take your left hand slightly forwards of your left shoulder, and we're taking that quarter turn, right toes out towards the right side of your mat. Come onto outside edge of left foot, and take your right arm and reach it up towards the ceiling. So you're pressing now with your right foot really strongly into the ground to try to lift up and press up from underneath your hips. Inhale there. Exhale, sinking outside of your left hip down towards the ground. Right hand can reach towards that back foot. We'll do that again. Press with your right foot into the ground. Press, press, press. Lift and press up through your hips as high as you can. Exhale, sink it down. Lifting up again, breathing in, pressing with right foot. And then exhale, swizzle back through center and step to downward facing dog. Right away, pull forwards, plank pose. Inhale, breath. Chaturanga, supported variation if you'd like. Exhale. Let's come all the way down to our belly. Cobra, Bhujangasana, finding that nice back bend. And a child's pose. Exhale. Okay, come on back to hands and knees. Now, we're going to take the same kind of setup here. I'm turning just so you can see a little bit better. We're going to send our right leg straight back behind us. This time we're going to keep that right leg totally straight. We're not going to bend the knee. So nice and parallel, right toes pointing directly down towards the ground. Now you're going to turn your right toes out towards the side and kick your right leg straight out to the side. So straight out from your right hip. And you're trying to press up through the outside edge of your right foot towards the ceiling. Okay? Now you're going to sweep that right leg back behind you nice and slow and gather back into that nice parallel alignment. So right toes pointing down towards the ground. Here we go again. Kick the right leg straight out to the right side. Press up towards the ceiling through the outside edge of that right foot. And then send that right leg slowly back behind you, nice and parallel, right toes point down. 2 more times. Keep breathing. I know there's a lot of interesting sensations that happen here as we start to strengthen those outer hip muscles. Again, it's the glute med muscles that really help to support pelvic alignment. Right leg extends back behind you. This is the last time. Go slowly as you can. Right leg kicks straight out to the side. Outer edge of right foot presses skywards. Keep breathing and then slowly send that right leg back. Take an inhale breath. Right knee to forehead. Exhale. Step right foot between hands. Let's return to crescent lunge. Let your hips sink down and forwards. Big breath. Sweeping arms wide and high. Soften the shoulders. Again, inhale to reach and lengthen outer fingertips. Exhale, hands to the mat. 3-legged dog, right leg is high. Bend the knee, stack the hip open. Pause there to inhale. Step right foot slowly to outside of your right hand with your exhale. So this time, You can stay up here on your fingertips if you'd like, or you can walk your hands slightly forwards and maybe bend your elbows a tiny bit. Some of you may be able to lower down to your forearms, and if you happen to have some blocks, you could use 1 or 2 blocks as kind of like a midway point, a part way down to the ground point here. So we're going to hang out in this deliciously deep and challenging lizard stretch. And I want you to keep that back leg powered up and nice and strong. Keep that full right foot sealed to the ground. And do your best to lengthen the spine here. So instead of dropping and collapsing through your chest, I want you to elongate out of the crown of your head. And then most importantly, breathe. Visualize, feel your breath sending, dropping all the way down into your hips, into your pelvis, into the very bottom of your belly. Stick with it for one more round of breath. Stay focused, stay soft, but also really powerful and strong in your intention to follow this through, to stick it through to the end. Good. Now you can release and come on back up onto your fingertips. We're going to lengthen both legs here, so it's like a pyramid shape. An option here to flex your right toes up towards the ceiling if you choose, and pull that right hip really clearly back so your pelvis is nice and square. Now we're just pausing here for 2 or 3 rounds of breath, bowing your head and your chest down towards that sort of inside line of your right thigh. One more deep inhale, and one more deep exhale. Good. Rebend your right knee. Left foot steps to outside of left hand. Yogi squat last time on this side. Breathe it in. Sigh it out. Forward fold. Parallel feet. Let's take half lift as you fill up your lungs, and forward fold. Stretch it down to the ground as you empty out your lungs. Come on up to stand with your breath in. Same thing, right back down to forward fold with your exhale. Halfway lift. Gather your shoulders back. Now stepping your right foot to the back of your mat. Place your right hand slightly forwards from your right shoulder. Same thing as we did on the first round. So the left toes turn that quarter turn out to the left side. Come on over to the outer edge of your right foot. We're just going to do one of these. So you're pressing with that left foot into the ground. Send your hips up towards the ceiling as much as you can. Inhale, breath. And exhale, lower outside of right hip down towards the ground. You can pause and hang out here if you need to, if you'd like. When you're ready, send your hips up, 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 nice and high again. And now we're going to swizzle all the way around towards the front, but then continue all the way around towards that long right side of your mat. Turn your toes slightly out, your heels slightly in. Bend your right knee, so you're going towards the back of your mat. Low side lunge, you're extending your left leg and kicking out through your left heel. So now we're getting to inner line of our thighs, inner hips, inner groin, the adductors, which can get pretty tight for a lot of us. So let's take full breath in, sighing breath out, and then we're going to just shift it over to the other side. So you're bending that left knee, extending and kicking long out of that right leg, out of that right heel. Again, big inhale breath. Full exhale breath. One more time, shift it over towards the back of your mat. Breathing in steady. And breathing out. Good. Now we're going to crawl forwards. Left toes are pointing directly to the front of your mat. Right toes point towards that long right side of your mat. And we're going to build our side angle pose. So first option is always press your forearm into the top of your thigh. Try to gather that left hip underneath you and open up that whole right side of your body. Right fingertips reach skywards. So hang out here if that's feeling like it's enough, it's good. Otherwise, you can reach your left fingertips down towards the ground on the outside of your left foot. And as we breathe into side angle pose here, gently press the outside of your left knee open slightly, so it's not knocking inwards at all. You're guiding that left knee slightly open towards your left pinky toe. Full steady breath. Make sure the breath doesn't get short or choppy here, so it's pause and just take that focus on one sweet steady round of breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Now taking that top arm, your right arm, sweep your hand down to the ground. Now right hand stays steady on the mat, right underneath your right shoulder. We're going to come up and over to the outside edge of your right foot. So side plank. You can take your left hand just onto your left hip here, and I want you to try to press up from underneath that right side of your waist, from the outside of your right hip. I want you to try to press up through your hips towards the ceiling. Pause and breathe. Feel again underneath that right hip, really pressing up from underneath. One more round, stay steady as you can. And now we'll shift slowly back through center. Bring your left knee, your left shin to the mat. Turn your left foot slightly out to that left side. And again, we're sweeping right arm open to the ceiling, maybe right hand rests on your right hip. So if you want to stay here, go for it. Otherwise, we're going to strengthen inner thighs here. So press with your back foot into the ground and hug that left ankle up towards the inside of your right knee, your right thigh. Lift your hips up to the ceiling a little bit higher, and then lower your hips just like 2 inches, just a tiny bit. And then press your hips up a little higher to the ceiling. Breathe in, lower your hips a couple of inches, not very much. Breathe out. And then last time, inhale, hips up nice and high. And then exhale, come on back. Downward facing dog. Let that go. Sigh it out if you'd like. Moving through a flow. You can always skip these out if you want. If you're coming along, breathe into plank or supported plank. Exhale, lower through that push-up, all the way to your belly. Breathe in for cobra. And child's pose. Exhale. Okay, hands and knees. Now, this is our last time through this strengthening. The glute needs strengthening. And I'm sure you're happy that it's the last time through, because it's certainly not a crowd pleaser, but it's really, really important and can really help stabilize the pelvis quite a bit. So send your left leg straight back behind you, nice and parallel, left toes pointing to the ground. Now we're going to turn the left toes out and kick your left leg straight out to the side, straight out from your left hip, and you're pressing up to the ceiling through the outside edge of your left foot. Slowly swing your left leg back behind you and gather back into nice parallel thighs, left toes pointing down. Again, kick out to the side, nice and slow. And I want you to just find your own rhythm of breath here. So it's not like a really short, panting breath, but just find your own steady flow of breath in and out however you need to. Send that left leg back in parallel. Again. Slowly out to the left side, pressing outer edge of left foot up towards the ceiling, and slowly gather it all the way back. Now inhale breath, and exhale, pull left knee to forehead. Step your left foot between your hands, crescent lunge. Let the hips sink forwards. Let's rise up. Take your breath in, and a breath out. Easy shoulders. Again, breathe in and exhale, hands down, three-legged dog. Send that left leg high, bend the knee, stack the hip open, breathe in. Slowly step left foot to the outside of your left hand. So we're going to stay and get cozy into our lizard stretch here this time. Back leg stays powered up and straight. You can stay here on fingertips or palms of the hands, or walk your hands just a little bit further forwards to help you ease in a little deeper. Maybe bend your elbows, maybe lower your forearms to the ground, or again, use a block underneath your forearms as that sort of halfway point, midway point. Now we're keeping our spine elongated. There's definitely a lot of effort here within this stretch. It is not a passive stretch. So keep that really clear focus on breathing deeply and smoothly, and on sticking with this for a few more rounds of breath. Even though it's hard, stick with it. Keep that back leg powered up. Soften and sink through the pelvis. Spine stays nice and long. Face stays soft. So let your jaw relax, your forehead relax. It's not going to help you to clench and tighten and use unnecessary gripping here. So just use what you need and nothing extra. And we're going to slowly let that go. Come on up to your fingertips. Lengthen both legs so we're coming into that pyramid shape. Hips are nice and square. Pull back through the outside of your left hip. Maybe flex left toes up towards the ceiling. Bowing down with your head, your chest. And again, breathing. Sticking with it here as we pause, as we really have to sink and settle in into the stretch, the effort, and the sensation. It helps to bring more focus to just breathing in and breathing out as smoothly, as calmly as possible. Now let's rebend the left knee and step right foot to outside of your right hand. Very last yogi squat here for the practice. Long spine, breathe in. Maybe a nice sigh out. Releasing sigh out. Forward fold, parallel the feet. We'll take our halfway lift on your inhale, stretch out the spine and reach it down to the ground. Forward fold, exhale. Come on up to stand. Breathe in. Pull down to the ground again, forward fold and breathe out. Halfway lift, inhale. Left foot steps all the way back. Step your left hand slightly forwards of your shoulder. Turn your right toes, that quarter turn towards the right side of your mat, and come onto outside edge of your left foot. Reaching your right arm skyward, you're pressing with your right foot into the ground to send your hips up, 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 up as high as you can. Breathe it in. And then lower down, sink down through the outside edge of your left hip. Breathe it out. Again, you can hang out here for a little bit if you want to. When you're ready, press with that right foot. Send your hips up nice and high. Inhale, and now swizzle around towards the front of your mat, and then all the way around to that long left side of your mat. Toes slightly out, heels slightly in. Bend your left knee so you're going to the back of your mat. As you come into that low side lunge, you're really kicking and pressing out of your right heel. So you want your thigh muscles to actually be engaged here. Inhale, breath. And then exhale to get a little longer through that inner thigh, those adductors. Now shift it over, crawl over to the front of your mat. Kick out of that left heel for your inhale breath. Keep kicking, lengthening out through inner thigh, exhale breath. Last time, shift over to the back of your mat. Breathing in and breathing out. Good, now crawling forwards. We're setting up for side angle pose, so your right toes are pointing forwards. Your left toes are going to point to that long side of your mat. Building side angle pose, maybe forearm to top of your thigh, and then try to pull that right hip underneath you. Stack open through the left side of your body. So left side of body stacking on top of right as clearly as you can. Now, option here again, if you want to go a little deeper, right hand reaches down to the ground on the outside of your right foot. And then you can press that right knee, the outside of your right knee, press it open into your right arm slightly. Steady, even breath. Couple more rounds. Breathing all the way down, down into the bottom of your belly, down into your pelvis. Now take that top arm, slowly reach it down to the ground. We're going to shift our weight into the left hand and into the outside edge of the left foot for side plank. So stacking your right foot on top of the left, you can take your right hand on top of your hip, and you're really trying to use the muscles on the outside of your left hip to send your pelvis and the side of your waist up towards the ceiling. So pause there, breathe deep, lift up from underneath your hips, and then slowly shift back through to plank pose. Take your right knee, right shin to the ground, and then turn that right foot out a quarter turn. So now you're on your right hand, left arm reaches high, maybe just place left hand on top of left hip. If you want to stay here again, stay here. That's great. If you're coming along, you're going to snuggle up, hug up through your right foot to your inner left knee, inner left thigh. And now lift the hips up a little higher on your inhale, and then lower your hips just like 2 inches on your exhale. And then again, lift up a little higher, breathe in, hips lower a tiny bit, and breathe out. And then hips lift up a little bit higher, and then let it go. Downward facing dog. Let your head release. Optional flow here. Take it or leave it, your choice. Plank on your breath in, chaturanga, half or all the way down with your exhale. You can take cobra or maybe an upward facing dog this time. And then flow it back, downward dog with your exhale. Okay, sweep the right leg high to the ceiling, breathe in, step right foot to the outside of your right hand. And then we're gonna lower that back knee, left knee to the ground. And if your knee feels sensitive, then put something underneath your knee or double up your mat for a little more cushioning. Left hand steps out towards that left side and slightly forwards from your shoulder. I'll start with right hand on top of my right thigh and just spin my chest towards that right side. If this is enough, just stay here. You don't have to do anything else. Otherwise, you can reach right hand back. Maybe bend that left knee. Lift your hips up away from the ground to help you grab a hold of your left foot with your right hand. And then re-sink your hips gently, without force. Re-sink your hips towards the ground. So we're getting into our thigh stretch, quadricep stretch here. As always, there's lots of room and opportunity. If you want to go deeper, you can lower down onto that forearm. You can let your head just kind of hang or dangle here. Breathe really, really deep as we get into some fairly deep stretch here and through the thigh muscles. Again, releasing into hip flexors. You want to keep that heel pulling in towards your butt cheek so that you can really get into the belly of those quadricep muscles. Give yourself one more really full round of breath. So stay where you are and take one more deep breath in and one more deep breath out. And then let that back foot very, very gently release. Come on back through center. You're going to stretch your front leg, and I want you to kind of just take that right foot over towards the left side of your mat and back behind your hands a little bit. So we're going for an IT band and outer thigh stretch here. In order to access that, you need to have that front leg straight. So if you can't access that straight leg. Some things you can do to help out is step your back foot a little closer to your front foot. Come on up to your fingertips. If you happen to have a block or two blocks, that could also help to lift the ground up to meet you here with your hands. So wherever you are with this stretch, we really want to try to scissor our inner thigh. So I'm pulling here my right hip back towards the wall behind me, scissoring through my inner thighs. And you're welcome to kind of bow down slightly with your head, let your head release. And important to note here that I'm not actually holding all of my weight in my hands. Most of my weight is in my feet, and my hands are just supporting me here slightly. So really send your weight back into your feet. 1 or 2 more rounds of breath. And that outer hip, outer thigh, IT band area can be pretty juicy, pretty intense. So if you're feeling this and you're like, whoa, just know that that's very normal, and breathe your way through it. All right, I think that's enough of that. So let's let that go. Peek forwards. Now, if you happen to have your back foot stepped forwards, then just step it to the back of your mat again. And we're going to release down into our pigeon stretch. So hips nice and square, right knee wide out to the right side of the mat. And you can adjust this stretch by either having your right foot further forwards for a much deeper stretch, or draw your right heel closer to your pubic bone for a slightly gentler stretch. Release forwards, forearms. Make a stack of your fists to rest your forehead on. Maybe use a block under your forehead again if you had one. Or even lengthen your arms all the way out, let your head find the ground. Those back toes, if you want to have them tucked or untucked, it's really up to you, whatever feels the most comfortable there. Now that same feeling that we had at the very beginning of really just allowing ourselves to get heavy, I want you to find that here. So heavy, heavy, heavy. Release into the ground. Soft. Maybe a little sway or movement through your shoulders just to remind your shoulders to let go. A little rock of your head from side to side. Remind your neck to let go, your jaw to release. Let your belly be soft so you can relax your abdominals. You don't have to hold your abdominals, your belly here at all. Let your belly hang out. And you've got one more round of breath. Give it a big sigh if you want. Good. Let it go. Come on back up. And shift back to downward facing dog. Now, maybe just a breath or two in downward dog. Some of you may want to take yourself through plank and chaturanga, cycling through that vinyasa through the middle of both sides. So feel free to take that if you want to go ahead. Otherwise, steady breath or two into your downward facing dog. And then as you're ready, let's switch sides. Left leg reaches up. Breathe in, step left foot to the outside of your left hand as you breathe out, and then lower your back knee to the ground. Double up your mat or put something underneath your knee if you want, if your kneecap feels a bit sensitive. Right hand steps out to the side slightly and forwards from your shoulder, and left hand to top of left thigh. So you're just taking a little spin of your chest towards the left first, letting your hips sink down and forwards. Stay here. You don't have to reach for that back foot if you don't want to, or if it's not feeling accessible to you. If you are going to reach for that back foot, it can help to lift your hips up away from the ground in order to grab your foot. Once you've got the foot in your hand, then you can let your hips sink down again. You're more than welcome to release to your forearm if you've got some more space and you want to get in deeper. Breathe. And I know it seems kind of obvious, like yes, we are always breathing. We're never not breathing. But we're not always breathing with intention. We're not always breathing with focus. We're not always breathing to the full depth of our inhale and our exhale. So keep refining your breath, smoothing out, elongating, deepening your breath. And really let that help you release and lengthen into these stretches. Let it help you stay focused and calm and steady. Good. Let's let that back foot softly go. Come on back through center. We're lengthening both legs. Now we're going to take our front foot, our left foot, and step it over towards the right side of our mat and slightly back behind your hands. So we're coming into that outer hip and outer thigh stretch again. Remember, the front leg needs to be straight in order to access the outer hip and thigh. So do what you need to do. If that means stepping your back foot further forwards or putting something underneath your hands. Wherever you are, scissor your inner thighs. Pull that left hip back behind you really clearly. And maybe let your head soften down. Just kind of ease and bow down through your upper body. Again, find the breath. Focus on the breath. Refine your breath. Only use what you need in order to stay here. So if you're like clenching everything up, that's a lot of unnecessary gripping and tension. So see if you can melt wherever possible and just use the effort that is needed and nothing extra, nothing more. One deep final breath here in this outer hip and outer thigh stretch. And then let's release onto the hands. You're going to bend that left knee and just release down onto your shin for our pigeon stretch. Adjust. Again, you can take your heel closer to pubic bone, a little gentler stretch. You move your foot slightly forwards for a deeper stretch. Really square off the hips. And then release down. Now, I definitely recommend, like on the other side, I definitely recommend having your head resting on something so that your neck can soften, your neck can release, which then helps your jaw to release, your shoulders to release. Breathe deep, send your breath, feel your breath draw right down to the bottoms of your lungs, right down to the bottom of your belly, all the way down into that bowl of your pelvis. Nice full, smooth, almost watery type breaths. So really flowing, free flowing breath in and out. You've got a couple more rounds of breath here in this pigeon stretch. Do your best not to hurry, not to rush. There's lots of time. And then take your last breath in, maybe a sighing breath out if you want it. Come on up, and now we're going to swing that back leg around to the front and just lower on down onto your back. Okay, very last thing that we're going to do here, squeeze your knees in towards your chest. Give them a little hug, a little rock, so you're releasing into the back of your pelvis, into your lower spine, lower back. Now we're going to take our happy baby stretch. So opening the knees, flex your feet and grab a hold of the outside edges of your feet. Point the soles of your feet up towards the ceiling, and if that's not accessible to you, then you can just hold on to your ankles or your shins, or even just hold on to your knees and open your knees out towards the sides. Nice deep breaths. A lot of you will just naturally find that you're wanting to rock a little bit from side to side. Go ahead and do that. Some of you may find that you want to stretch one leg out, the other leg out. You don't have to do this though, it's just offerings. Maybe both legs stretch out, maybe not. Good, one more soft belly breath here into happy baby. So breathing in and breathing out. Let's let your feet go. Maybe give the knees one final little squeeze in. And then let's release. Let your legs go nice and long. And come into your resting pose. Legs are a little bit wider than hip width apart. Arms can be out by sides, or maybe rest hands on your belly. Close your eyes if possible. Just take 3 to 5 really steady, quiet breaths in and out. You don't have to do anything else. Just breathe quietly, steady, calm breaths. Let everything else go. Let your body be completely relaxed. No effort. Whatever's going on around you, in the space around you, just let it go. It's only for a moment. Whatever sounds are around you, let them be there. Allow your body to soak up and absorb everything that you've just done. And now we'll take our last breath here. So slowly, slowly, slowly fill up your lungs, fill up your belly, fill up all the way down into your pelvis. And then exhale. Move fingers and move toes, and then you can roll over onto one side, curl over to a fetal position. Come all the way up to your seat, and we'll finish there. So you can just place hands together. This nice way of sealing in your intention, sealing in your effort, sealing in that time and your practice. Maybe take one nice round of breath in and out. And I'll leave you here. So namaste. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for practicing.